All right, it's preparing to live stream. What's the difference? Is it quieter? The jet? Oh,
It's cold in here now.
it cools off. There's a YouTube chat too. Okay, so I'll just leave it going and I reduce the resolution.
Want to do that?
Got it. Okay, looks like everyone's here. We will go ahead and get started with Start Webinar. For everyone just joining us, we do just have to give it an extra minute or so for all the attendees to be let into the webinar. Okay, I don't see any additional people joining us, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Dan Plotner. I'm a program coordinator here at Air Pollution Control District, and I will be hosting the meeting today. The purpose of today's meeting is for Emissions Inventory System Portal Training. And our goal is to teach you how to enter your previous calendar year emissions into the Air Pollution Control District's Emissions Inventory Systems Portal. That's a website, and we're going to have a live demonstration while we're on this webinar. The meeting is also being recorded, and it will be linked from our website to a YouTube stream, which is also live streaming right now. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat, or you can use the raise hand button, which is towards the bottom of your screen. And as we go through the presentation, you can ask those questions. There will be some pauses while we're going, and we'll ask if you have any questions. So if you raise your hand, that means you'd like to speak. We will call on you and allow you to unmute your microphone. So just give us a chance to do that. But we will say your name, and we'll say that when you're able to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to speak. Joining us today, we have Suha and Michelle, who are assisting with running the meeting. We also have Janya Lofgren, who is a senior engineer and emissions inventory supervisor here at Air Pollution Control District. She will be introducing her team, and she will start with her presentation, followed by Mike Johnson with Lakes Environmental, and he was involved with developing the actual website. At the end, we'll also have additional time for questions. Okay, so with those introductory remarks out of the way, we will go ahead and get started with Janya, who will introduce her team and begin her presentation. Janya?
Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon, everyone. As Dan said, my name is Janya Lofgren. I'm a senior engineer here at the district, and I help lead our toxics and emissions inventory team. Today, we will be providing a training for our emissions inventory system portal, also known as the EIS portal. The training is going to be virtual, and it's meant to help users in uploading the data into EIS portal for data of calendar year 2021 emissions inventory. So real quick, I'd like to give time for our panelists to introduce themselves. Some of you on the call may be familiar with the team here at APCD for emissions inventory, or see them listed as contacts on the data request letters you've recently received. So first we have Archie. Archie, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everyone. My name is Archie Dela Cruz, and I'm a staff engineer here at Emissions Inventory. Welcome.
Thank you. And then next we have Russell.
Hi, everyone. Russell Yanagihara, APCD Emissions Inventory Engineer.
Thank you. And then we have May.
Hi, my name is May. I work for the emission inventory team as engineer.
Thank you, May. And last, we also have Hans Fritschen, but he is unable to join us today. So that is someone else that is an engineer on our team, and you might see his name on those letters as well. So great, thanks everybody. If we could load the PowerPoint so we can get started. Perfect, okay. And then we can just jump into the agenda. So real quick, I'll go over the agenda for today's training. First, I'll review Rule 19.3 applicability and show an example of the 2021 data request letter. Then go over the phase-in use of the EIS portal as seen in Rule 19.3. Then we'll go into the EIS portal overview, which will include information on access and registration, the new responsible official or RO designation, uploading and submitting 2021 data, and then our software developer, Mike Johnson, will give a short demonstration of the EIS portal. Finally, we will provide some support contacts for using EIS. So before we jump into everything, I would like to mention that this is our second training on the EIS portal. The PowerPoint and recordings of the first training, as well as this one, is available or will be available on our website today. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to go over a little bit of Rule 19.3 applicability. Who must report for emission inventory? As seen in District Rule 19.3, there are several regulatory programs that we have to report inventories for. So I'm going to give a short summary of each program, including the inventory type and the reporting frequency. Although if you have any questions about applicability or a specific inventory type, I suggest referring to each regulation directly. So for example, any of the regulations that are listed here that are created by the California Air Resources Board or CARB can be found on their website, and we have given links on this slide to those regulations. So the first one listed is the California Air Resources Board, or CARB's, Assembly Bill 2588 Hotspots Program. These inventories are required to report if they emit any of the toxic air contaminants found in Appendix A of the Emission Inventory Criteria Guidelines Regulation, also known as the EICG. These facilities are required to be analyzed for health risk, and therefore their emission inventories are used to create prioritization scores. And if those scores are above district thresholds, a health risk analysis, also known as an HRA, may be required. The reporting frequency for this inventory type is every 4 years. The second inventory listed here is CARB's Criteria Pollutant and Toxic Emissions Reporting, also known as CTR. Facilities must report to CTR if they qualify for any of the following, which are listed here on the slide. The first is part of CARB's Greenhouse Gas Mandatory Reporting Program, also known as Cap and Trade. The second one is, or if the facility emits more than 250 tons per year of criteria emissions. And last, they may be CTR if the district determines a facility to have elevated risk. For CTR facilities, the reporting frequency is annual. The third inventory listed here is for facilities who emit more than 25 tons per year of NOx or VOC, which is a requirement of the Federal Clean Air Act of the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, and the reporting frequency for that inventory is annual. The next one, which is the second from the bottom, is for facilities who emit more than 5 tons per year of NOx or VOC, and that is per the district's Rule 19.3. And the reporting frequency for that inventory type is every year, it's annual. And last but not least, facilities that are located within AB 617 communities and are part of the Community Emission Reduction Plan may be required to report emission inventories. The frequency for those inventories is as requested by the district, although that would be no less than an annual emissions inventory. Within any calendar year, a facility may be required to report to one or more of the programs listed here. Each facility will receive a data request letter, which will cite the inventory type for a given facility within that calendar year. I will go over on the next slide a description of that letter and how you can identify what emissions inventory type you're reporting to. I'm going to pause here for a second because I think we have a question. Let's see, if a facility, I'm assuming if a facility has less than 25 tons per year, does 19.3 apply to us? Yes, okay, thanks. So essentially Rule 19.3 refers to multiple reporting programs. So even if you emit less than 25 tons per year, you may still be applicable to another program that's referenced in Rule 19.3. But if you emit less than 25 tons per year, you will not be classified as an EPA criteria emissions inventory. If that answers your question. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide if there's no other questions. Okay. So as described before, this is an example of the 2020 data request letter. So facilities required to report emission inventories for data in calendar year 2021 should have received an email in the last couple of weeks, which included the 2021 data request letter. You also should have received this by mail. The letter should have included attachments and forms for upload into the EIS portal. A data request is sent for every facility that is required to report, and therefore each facility should receive one letter. It is the responsibility of each facility to report data. So if you believe a facility should have received a data letter and they did not, please let us know. So this screenshot is an example. A couple areas to note. The date listed on the letter is important because the facility must submit the data in the EIS portal no later than 60 days from the date on the letter. On the upper right-hand corner, you will find the Emissions Inventory Facility ID, also called the EIF ID, which identifies the facility and is needed to register for an EIS portal account under that facility. And then the last little red box, that in the subject of the letter will include the emission inventory type for which the facility is reporting. The example here is for a toxic emission inventory. So if you have any questions about what type of inventory your facility is reporting for, then please reference the subject on the letter that you received.
Janya, Bill in the chat had a follow-up to his original question.
Okay. So if you emit less than 25 tons, you have to do this, and we do less than 5 tons. So the 25 tons and the 5 tons are for criteria emissions. You may still apply to the AB 2588 hotspots program or the CTR program if you release toxic air contaminants, or you part of the GHG MRR program, or if the district has qualified you as a facility that has elevated risk in the past. Okay, then let's go to the next slide. So as seen in District Rule 19.3, which was amended and adopted by our board in December of last year, there is a phase-in period for the requirement of using the EIS portal to submit data. For calendar year 2021, reported in 2022, it is required to use the EIS portal to upload data. Users must log into the EIS portal and use the upload function to upload data request forms or data needed to complete inventories. There are no restrictions on the type of document for upload into the EIS portal. The data must be uploaded and submitted by the deadline referred to in the data request letter. Although not required for this year, facilities may also use the data entry module, which Mike will go over in his demonstration. Next, for data year 2022, reported in 2023, use of the data entry module in the EIS portal will be required. This includes the use of EIS generated Excel workbooks, which are accepted and encouraged to be used. The use and upload of PDF or Word document forms will no longer be accepted in data year 2022, uploaded in 2023.
Question in the chat, Janya, from Paula.
Sure. Okay. So is the type of emission inventory requested on this spreadsheet? Yes. Okay, so this appears to be a question about inventory type, which was the slide that we had went over previously. The question is the type of emission inventory request one of those mentioned on the Rule 19.3 applicability slide? Yes, the applicability slide includes all of the rules that are listed in 19.3, and those are all the inventories which we are subject to and we report for. There are no inventories that are not listed either in Rule 19.3 or on that slide that we report for. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so let's go on to the next slide. So we'll go over a couple of resources on how to access our website and the portal. The EIS portal can be accessed from our website or from the portal directly. The emissions inventory system web page on our website includes direct access to the portal, as well as additional resources for EIS and trainings. Like I said, a recording of this training will be posted there, as well as the PowerPoint. Future trainings and announcements will also be listed on this webpage. So if you have any questions about using EIS, I would highly suggest starting at the San Diego APCD website page for EIS. From there, you can also see our contact information, including the help desk that for lakes, that is all listed there. So it's a great resource for accessing EIS, but then the other resources we have about EIS and using the portal. Okay, if you have any other questions, we can go to the next slide. So we can go over a little bit about EIS access and registration. The EIS portal can be accessed by direct link, which is the link given here. Some of you may already have an EIS portal account, and those accounts are still active if used within the last 6 months, because the portal, specifically the EIS portal that we use, while it is now a requirement to use it to upload data, it's not new. So we do know that some facilities and users had previous registrations, and if that's the case and you've logged in with the last 6 months, it should still be active. For those of you who would like to register for the first time, please use the request access link found on the EIS login page. It's in the red box here. An active email account and the EIF ID will be needed to register. Again, that EIF ID can be found on the 2021 data request letter sent to each facility. Another thing I would like to highlight before going to the next slide is that a single user may have access to multiple facilities. During the demonstration, we will show you how to access multiple facilities under a single user login. Although please keep in mind that registration for each facility or EIF ID is needed in order to control who has access to a facility's emission inventory. If you need help registering for an account, please email eis.support@weblakes.com. And that is also going to be on this PowerPoint later on.
Hey, Janya, how long does it take to get access?
Sure, I will answer that, and maybe Mike might want to jump in, but typically responses to the help desk have been about 48 working hours. Okay. Since I didn't hear from Mike, I assume that that's still correct. Okay, next slide. Okay, so before we go into a demonstration of the portal, I would like to discuss the EIS Responsible Official, or RO, designation. So a new role of Responsible Official, RO, has been added for each facility within EIS. One RO has been assigned to each facility. Therefore, each EIF ID has one RO associated with its inventory. The assigned RO will be able to view, grant, or remove user access to the facility's account. The RO role was created to help manage who can access a facility's emissions inventory and submit their data. ROs should have received an email from EIS technical support or LAKES detailing current user status and login instructions. If you've recently requested to update or contact information, the RO email may be coming shortly as we update our records. To update an RO, please email both the district and LAKES. We will need an email to both of us in order to confirm that the RO is correct and to make that change. Although all users can upload data for a facility, the submittal must be completed by the responsible official. Any questions? Correct. So the question is, I would like to confirm for reporting year 2021, uploading the data request forms is sufficient for compliance. That is correct. According to the phase-in schedule in the amended rule 19.3, you can upload those data request forms either in PDF or Word format or JPEG, and that is accepted as your data request being submitted for 2021. That will no longer be allowed in 2022, reported in 23. The use of the portal will then be required. Great. Okay, next slide. So I'd like to highlight 2 points, and Mike will go over this in his demonstration, but I would like to go over and highlight it especially. So up next, Mike Johnson of Lakes will demo the EIS portal. The most important functions of the EIS portal for submitting the 2021 data is the upload and submit modules, which are seen here. First, the upload documents module will be where a facility can upload the forms provided in the 2021 data request letters, as well as any other supporting documentation. There are no document type restrictions currently on this module. The next one, after the required documents have been uploaded, the emissions submittal must be used by the RO to submit the facility's data. Okay, if you have any questions, we can go into the next slide, and I will hand it over to Mike from Lakes Environmental to demo the portal.
Thank you, Johnny. That was a great introduction to what we're about to show. Just going to get set up here to share my screen, and we'll be able to proceed and show what's happening with EIS. So hopefully everybody can see my screen here in my browser window. Okay. So a couple things to note is that when you link to the EIS portal, you will come to a home page that'll have the login credentials if you have an account, or if you are looking to add access to the account and you were not designated as an RO. If you were already identified as the RO, you should have been granted an account with a sign up credentials pass already. However, if you have not been granted, you can use the request access. If you click on the request access, you will note that it'll just come to a page that'll ask you for the email address and the EIF ID. So I can enter an email address to request access. So it can be so we can get our Uncle Bob, who works here at Lakes Environmental Software, and I will enter my EIF ID. So with that information, I can click the submit. I can have my email address, and we'll proceed. And you'll just note that it will say that it was registered and held on. If you see anything but this page after submitting the request, something has happened, and please email our help desk. But at this point, we'll just go ahead and continue. And now I'm going to simulate access to the portal as an RO user. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in as the operator, and I will log in. So a couple of things to note when we sign in. First of all, you'll note that we always come to the start dashboard. So this start is the home page of everything you need to do. So this page will show pretty much all of the major steps that are needed for processing. You'll note that you will see in the upper right corner the inventories that you have access to. So currently I'm in the 2021 inventory. I can see the upload documents. I can see the questionnaire if I want to do data entry online, and finally, once I have done either the upload or the EI questionnaire, I can then do the submittal. Now, a little further down the page, you'll note that as an RO, you'll see two grids that you will have access to. The inventory users, this will show you exactly every user and every account in the EIS portal who has access to this inventory. So I can see that individual person, so I can see the email address and the name that was provided when they registered the account. To the right, you can see the user signups. And with that is you'll see the emails for people who have requested access to the system. So you'll see the email and the status, if they are denied, approved, as needed by the individual accounts. If I went to grant access, I can simply click on the action and I can choose to click the approve. And by this, when I click the approve action, you'll note that the account is now listed as approved and an invitation will be supplied. So if you are the RO and you have, say, a consultant that you wish to work with or other team members that you need to collaborate with, it's important to check the signups and click the action here to allow them to be approved. This is the fastest way to get the access because then you do not need to go through the help desk and wait in the queue. I highly encourage the ROs to check their signups list and to approve those who need access with them. Okay. At this point, I just want to show, before we go into the deeper kind of procedural items, is to note how to get to individual inventories. So from this inventory link at the top, if you click on it, what you will see is a list of all the inventories. Now you'll note a couple of things about this listing. First, you'll note that there are historic inventories that were previously completed. Because they are no longer available for modification, you'll see them as locked. So this means that you can view the data that is present in that inventory, but it is locked for modification at this point because that reporting period has closed. You'll note that I have other sites, for example, here that I can look at by just clicking on it, or I can go back to the inventory that I'm in. So if I click on this inventory, you'll note that it comes over to this site. One key element of this is that the access and the signups that you have for this facility are listed and they'll show their status for this particular inventory. It is important to note that if you want a contractor to work on multiple sites, you will need to approve them for each inventory or each EIF ID. This is just mainly because there are sensitive information and we would rather err on the side of caution and not have somebody have access than to provide access that wasn't really provided. This is just because of the security climate we find ourselves in today, and we want to be as restrictive as possible just to provide sense of mind and privacy. So let's go back to the demonstration inventory now that I have completed. So I'll go back, I'll click this.
Real quick, Mike, I saw that there's a question and I'd like to answer.
Sure.
Because it's about the RO. So Paul asked, how does an RO initially sign up? This is a good question. So because this is the first year of the RO designation, the district has taken the last current contact on record that was used for emissions inventory. That is the same individual that is listed on the 2021 data request letter. They should have received an email from Lakes designating them as the RO. We do know that there may be staffing changes. And so if there should be somebody else that is an RO, or you would like to have another RO, please let us know and we will create that RO designation for the person that you've identified. Sounds good. So due to confidentiality reasons, we won't answer any facility specific questions on this. I would definitely recommend that you reach out to the district specifically if you have any questions about specific facilities. Yes, so the RO will still have to request access. So we will give you the RO designation once you've created an account. The registration essentially is something that you will do to create your user ID and password. And that's not something the district or Lakes will do. These are all great questions. Okay, I don't see any RO questions at the moment. So Mike, I think that you can continue.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so now we're back in our basic inventory. So now what I want to cover is how we can upload a document. So see that now that we're back on the start dashboard, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload documents. You'll note when clicking that, you come to this linked and uploaded documents section. If you haven't uploaded documents before, this will be unlisted, so there will not be any sets. So I'm going to go ahead and add a set of documents to the system. So I'm going to go click the add blank documents. I can name the sets, so I can say 2021. And then I'm going to give it a description, say such as compliance documents, MSDS, and we'll leave that at this. This just allows us to name and understand what's in the submittal, kind of a brief description, and then we can click next here in this lower right-hand corner. Then once we're here, we can select the files that we want to upload. So I can say select file. I can choose, say, my MSDS document, first one. Click OK. I can choose the type. I'll set to PDF, although this isn't strictly necessary. Any notes that I want to add to it to say this is for benzene, say. And then I can choose upload. Now I can upload them one by one, or I can select multiple files. So I can say now I'm going to enter my request, again as a PDF document, and I'm going to upload them. So now you can see everything that I'm about to send to the district. I'm going to select just one last one. Select that. And so now you can see everything before we click finish to actually do the upload is all the documents you are going to submit. If I need to remove something, for example, if I don't want to submit number 2, I can choose this nice little trash can and it'll remove it from the list so that I'm not unnecessarily submitting documents that I don't want to submit at this time. And then when I'm finished, I can click finish and it'll just upload the documents. You'll note that here, the very latest set will be at the top. And when I click on it, I can see everything that I just uploaded. So I can see my MSDS and I can see my data request documents that I've uploaded. Again, these are documents that are available here. And this is just a review that you have completed everything that you needed for the upload. Okay, and that's really all that is needed to do the document submittal. At this point, I'm going to go back to the home dashboard, so you can get here either through the dashboard or you can click home. Equally work. I like to click the dashboard because it's nice and big and my mouse can find it quite quickly. Again, we'll be back here at the start, and now we can cover off the next topic in the system. For those who are not using the upload documents mechanism this year and want to do the data entry online, you can use the questionnaire. So by clicking on the questionnaire, we will enter into the data entry module for filling out the requests online. If I go ahead and click on it, you'll note that it automatically selects the facility that I have in the system. You'll note that automatically, because there's only usually one facility per inventory, it'll show the EIF ID, so you know you're in the right place, and the name of the facility. So in my case, it's my demo facility. A couple of things you'll note is that there is essentially a list of the materials. This corresponds, each one of these materials and each one of these rows corresponds to what has traditionally been a single page in the data request that has gone out to individual facilities in years prior. So I can highlight the air permit, I can see the site record, the device, the material, and kind of the calculation method name that I have here. As I cycle through them, you'll note that it quickly changes. And when I scroll down the page a little bit, what we will note is we will see the data that we see for this particular material. We'll see the data request, which has the material name, the annual usage, the max hourly usage that we have, and these are noted in green. The reason these are in green is because these are necessary to complete the data. The other data elements, such as the density, the VOC content, are useful, but are not necessary to the calculation at this point. And you'll note that the annual operating hours. On the control side, again, you'll see the data entry here for height above ground for those particular elements. And you can see the capture and control efficiencies, and so you can add those up. If you have site-specific emission factors, please note that you can enter them through clicking on the emission factors tab. If you wanted to change the value for the VOC, you'll note that it's highlighted in blue because it's different. If you want to go back, you can choose to revert, and you can see the value that is in the value. If you have modified the value, you'll note that you'll need to give an origin as a basis for your new value. So you can choose the origin, such as SEMS, MSDS, EIIP, CAR-BL, lots of these other capabilities to allow you to justify your reasoning. So I'm going to choose AP42, and I can proceed and upload the data as necessary. As I go on, I can click on each form as I need to, and I can update the data as we go through. So we can go through and see the next particular material for the device, and we can see the data that we need to enter. I'm looking at the control requests and the data requests. I can see what is necessary for the satisfying this particular data item. When I'm done, I can choose save. And if everything is complete.
Real quick, Mike, I see a question about
Sure.
the data entry that I'd like to address. So the question is, how do we change the description of permit? We have one permit that has two factors that aren't correct, and then one that is not correct at all. I can't see how to change it myself. So this is a great question. Currently, we have the EIS portal aligned with our district system, which tracks permits. And that's important so that we are able to track all of the active permits. If you have, or you find that the data request forms or the manual entry here in the portal do not align with your active permits, please contact the engineer listed on the letter and let them know which permits need to be added and or removed. We are expanding EIS in the future that potentially has more capacity, so facilities themselves can add different things. But since this is not a requirement and we're currently in the phase-in period, if you need any edits to permits, please contact the engineer on the letter and they will make those corrections.
Okay. So one of the last things that I wanted to show was just that if you are saving and you need to check on the data, if you click save and there's something incomplete, you'll note that it shows the QA/QC what is missing. So if I click on this nice button here, it will tell me everything that needs to be entered. So here it'll tell me that I need to enter a value for the ethanol, so I can carry forward. So for example, if I go back here and I choose the emission factors, should be noted that it's not complete. So what I can do is I can go back and edit this, and I can find the ethanol and I can remove it. And then when I save it, go back to the default, everything is complete. So this will help you complete the data entry as you need to go through each page and each item and each material in the permit by permit. A couple of other handy things are to note is that if you work by permit, there is a handy filter, so you can select the permit, and then it will only show just the permit and the devices under this permit. So this is an easier and more convenient way sometimes to work than to work under the super side or the super list here where we've got all 47 materials at once. So I think that kind of covers everything, at least at a high level, for the data entry.
Yeah, so real quick, we have a couple more questions. Will there be an Excel upload function or for a facility with a lot of permits? Yes, and that actually currently exists in EIS. If you would like to use what we call an EIQ Excel upload spreadsheet, please contact the engineer that is listed on your letter and they will provide that spreadsheet for you, and then you'll upload that into EIS. We currently don't have the capacity for facilities to download that themselves. The reason being is that it will be changing with the phase-in approach. And so for this year, if you would like to report by Excel, please request your forms from the district through the engineer that's listed on your letter. We have another question. Would a facility either use upload documents or EI questionnaire for filing? So you can use both. There's no restrictions. The requirement is that all the requested data be submitted. So that could be a combination of either upload documents and EI questionnaire or either one. Okay, I don't see any other questions, Mike, so you can go into submit.
Okay, so great. So now that I've kind of left the EI questionnaire, we're back on the home page and we're ready to try to do the submittal. So I'm going to go ahead and click the admission submittal. Now note that if you're not the RO, you will not be able to complete this. You will only see the upload in the questionnaire, but you should be able to, if you are the RO or one of the ROs, you can do the submittal. So click on the admission submittal. And you'll note that I have here in my inventory, I have 2 facilities. Now, the only reason I have 2 facilities again is simply just to make sure that we have one so I can show you what happens when something is incomplete. So for the second facility, I'm going to choose the submit. And when it goes, you'll note that the first thing it does is it runs kind of a QA/QC check. This QA/QC check will give me a chance to see if everything is submitted. If I have uploaded a PDF or any kind of documents at this point, that's enough to pass the QA for if you're trying to, if you're submitting through that means. If you're doing the data entry and you haven't uploaded any documentation, this will show the data that's missing. So this Excel spreadsheet you can download and you can review the documentation. Now, if I want to actually submit a demo facility that is working, I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And you'll note that as it goes through and checks everything, you'll see that all data is complete and is ready to submit. You also get an Excel file that you can keep for your records, and it also will just show you what you have provided and submitted to the district. So this is quite handy in keeping for your records, just so you know what you have actually submitted on a gross basis. Once we're ready, we can click next. And here we will note that there is an option to complete the certification. So if you are the RO, you can check the box saying, I certify that I'm authorized as the owner operator of the facility to make this submittal. If there are any notes or comments that you need to make to the reviewer, you can leave them here at this point. And if not, it will pass all along anyway. So I can go ahead and click finish. And it will do the submission. And you will note that having passed, you'll note that the status on your facility in this submittal page shows that it is submitted. At this point, the district will be notified and they will understand that the review process can go through. And at a later date, once it is complete, you will get the submittal will change back from submitted into complete. So let's go home.
There's a question, and I think that you might have answered that for Wendy, but I'd like to touch on it. So is there a summary page that can be generated to document the information submitted? So there's the QA/QC sheet, which Mike just went over, but also after submittal, the RO will receive an automatic email detailing that the data has been submitted. And then also, of course, what we do here at the district with this data is create an emissions inventory. That inventory will be sent to the facility and it will be a draft report package. And that, of course, needs to be reviewed within 30 days and then it will be finalized after that.
Yes. I would also like to point out that even after you have submitted, if you look at this QA files link here, you can go ahead and you can also get the QA summary document that was submitted for the facility. So for example, if I choose to download it, open it, this is kind of what it looks like. So what you'll note is that it has a summary. It'll tell you what's happened with the documents and the equipment data. On subsequent pages, you can see the equipment data and it will tell you all about the individual materials and how they were checked or passed. If there was something errant about the range or something that was missing, it will highlight here and it will tell you what is necessary for completion. On the documents page, it will show you everything that's available that was submitted in this inventory. And so you can see the completed forms and every PDF that was submitted up to the agency. So again, you'll know exactly what has been gone on. And that will suffice as a set of records. Okay. So with that, I understand that there may be a need to maybe walk through the document submittal and submittal one more time if there's a request or need for that.
Yeah, if we have any requests, Mike, then let's do that. But I think the demonstration's been sufficient, and we can pop over to the PowerPoint. And if we have time at the end or requests to revisit anything in the EIS, we can do
Fantastic.
that.
I see some new questions popped up.
Let's see. Of course, we will have time at the end to discuss more questions. So
I think we're caught up with all the questions at the moment, Mike.
Okay, very well. So then I'll go on mute and hand it back to Johnny and Russell.
okay, thank you, Mike. So I'd like to provide a couple references for support for EIS. So the first one for EIS technical support, which includes creating or modifying a login, designating an RO, or issues with uploading data, or any technical support issues with EIS, please contact eis.support@weblakes.com. For district support, which includes questions related to the data request forms, data to be submitted, and calculation methods that are used, please contact APCD inventory at sdapcd.org. You can also contact the engineer that's listed on the data request letter, which we've mentioned a couple times in this training. Again, a copy of this PowerPoint is already on our website, and then recordings of this training from the previous training is available, and then this one will be as well. Okay, and then we have our last slide. So I know that we have been answering questions, but if you have any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Please raise your hand or include them in the chat window. And then also wanted to provide you with a couple of the important links that we just went over. I think there's a hand raised.
So you are on mute. You can talk.
I was getting ready.
Brass.
I was getting ready to speak. I just unmuted myself. Mike Brass, County of San Diego, senior electrician. Good afternoon, folks. Question, or actually two things. Number one, until now, I've never been an RO. So lucky me, I'm now an RO. Second question is, I have 13 electricians that work under me throughout the County of San Diego, and they each have their own generators that they maintain. Will they also be designated as ROs, or is the district requiring that we only have one RO for our equipment?
Sure, that's a great question. So that's actually up to the facility and the designated responsible officials. So they could be given user access, which means they would register for an account, and then you as the RO would accept or deny their requests, which means that they could go into the system and edit the data, but they don't have the ability to actually submit your final report as an RO. Or if you'd like, they could also be designated as responsible officials and have the full capacity to accept and deny user access and submit the data. I will caveat that with, if there are multiple ROs on a single account, the district will only be sending one future correspondence for data request letters, draft reports, and finalized reports. And so if there won't be, for example, 13 different letters that are sent, it will just be one. And so I would like to highlight that as an option if there are multiple ROs listed.
Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes.
All right, not to log jam this thing. So, how do I put this? It's probably not advisable to have multiple ROs, but the electricians that work in the East County, they have their equipment. I would think they should be responsible of being an RO and getting the email of the data request forms instead of sending all this stuff to me here at my central location? I mean, is that acceptable to APCD in terms of recording this data?
Based on what you described, it sounds like it's two different facilities. So if they are reporting for a separate facility, EIF ID, even though you are designated as the RO, that is acceptable. Ideally there is 1 or 2 ROs per emissions inventory, EIF ID. So even though you're not at the same physical location, that actually means it's a different facility. And that would get a different letter, a different draft report, and a different finalized report. Every facility and every EIF ID will get its own set of letters.
Okay, thank you. If you can still hear me, thank you.
Of course.
Tanya, we have a question in the chat, actually 2 new questions in the chat, starting with Eric's.
Okay. Would be helpful on the district request letter to identify which program triggered the facility's inclusion. So that is on the 2021 data request letter that was received. It's in the subject line. So it will say 2021 and then thank you. Oh, there it is. For example, this is an example of one. And in the subject line, it says 2021 toxic emission inventory data request. That means it was the toxics reporting program, which triggered the reporting requirement and for which the inventory will be created for. If you have any questions about historical data, if it exists, please contact the engineer on the letter. Okay, when there's another question, the QA/QC came back as passed for each of the permit on my submittal, but the Excel download doesn't actually show everything in the value column or any other actual input data that was entered. Is this okay? So if there's any specific technical questions about QA/QC, I would recommend you reach out to Lake's tech support. But in general, just to mention that we have not set any QA/QC limitations on the 2021 data submittal. So if there are potential issues with QA/QC, you should still be able to submit all of the data for 2021. They won't restrict you from moving forward. Okay, I just don't want to miss any questions. We are a paint shop. How do we come up with how much materials we spray? Meaning, do I log the upload with my daily logs? Also, do I have to put in each and every MSDS, or can we categorize it just as paint? So it's a very good question. So there are several different facility types in San Diego, which are going to be a little more involved when it comes to emissions inventory. So for paint specifically, and I would recommend anybody that has questions about specific calculation methods to please reach out to the engineers that are listed on your letter. For this category specifically, each paint has the potential to include different toxic emission for that MSDS. So the answer is yes. The individual MSDSs are needed, and that is how we quantify emissions. If that is not available and not given, then a conservative MSDS will be chosen. The reason it's important to highlight that is that if a conservative MSDS is chosen, the potentially to estimate risk higher than what is actually given at the facility. So we definitely would like to see as much actual and real-time facility data as possible so that your emissions are as accurate as possible. In terms of what to report, we do have documentation on our website under our calculation procedures webpage, which details what we would like to see or what is the regulatory requirement for certain data sets. So I would recommend looking at those. If you still have questions, please reach out to the engineer on your letter and they can help answer any questions. You can submit daily logs or usages to your EIS portal for upload as well. And then we have another question. Sorry. Also, if I understand, there's a lag between the upload of emissions throughput via inventory request form and the submittal of actual inventory. Eric, I might ask you to clarify that question. When you say submittal of actual inventory, do you mean submittal to the state of California through CARB or submittal to the district? district. So maybe I can go through the process of how we create our emission inventories, and that might answer your question. If not, please let me know. So a facility should or will upload the data required for 2021 into the EIS portal. They will submit it. Then that data set is reviewed by the engineer that's listed on the letter. And the emissions inventory is created. At that time is when the emissions are finalized. If it's a toxic emission inventory, that is also the time where prioritization scores are created. So I guess there is a lag between when data is submitted and emissions are created, because the engineers will review and create those emission calculations. Okay. There's another question. With this particular reporting, since we have multiple permits, a welding booth and grinding booths, it requires us to report every single item that emits toxics. I.e., if we have a paint booth and we have 150 paints, we have to report an SDS or powder coat. So if the paints are using the same SDSs or have the similar representation, then we can have the potential to group them by type. But if the SDS is different, meaning that they are actually emitting different amounts of toxics, it's in the best interest of the facility and creating accurate emission inventories to do them individually. Okay, there's another question. Do actual emissions, NOx or CO, for example, have to be calculated by the facility, or will it be done by the district? So the data requests that were sent out and submission into EIS is just data. The emission calculations are done by the district, and then the district will send out a draft emissions inventory report to the facility for review. There is a 30-day review period of that draft emissions inventory, after which we either receive revision requests and we will review at that time, or the inventory will be finalized. And then depending on the inventory type, it is submitted through CEDARS to the California Air Resources Board. Okay, we have one more. I think we have another question. Bill, can you say that again? So I can go over again the general process and how we create inventories. And just for reference, also this presentation, recording this presentation will be online if you would like to go back for anything. So the data that is submitted into the EIS portal is used by our engineering staff here at the district to create emission inventories. And those emission inventories are created with the data that was submitted, and then a draft report of that inventory is sent out to each facility. It's a draft emissions inventory report package. It will include a cover letter and then all of the emissions associated with that inventory. In the letter, the facility is given 30 days to review the draft report and submit comment back to the district in case there's any issues. The district will then review potentially, or if there's no comments, then we will finalize that emissions inventory. Then we will submit that inventory to CEDARS for CARB reporting programs. Okay, so there's another question about a print shop. Do we list each ink color separately on each and every machine separately or as a lot? Again, if they have distinct SDSs with different potential toxic emissions, meaning different concentrations or weight percents, then yes, we'll need individual usages to calculate emissions and risk correctly. Okay, do we have any other questions? No? Okay. I would also like to suggest that we do now have a subscription service through the San Diego Air Pollution Control website, which allows you to be notified of any updates or changes to the emissions inventory program here at the district. If you have any questions, please sign up for that or reach out to us directly.
One last question from Mike in the chat there, Janya.
Sure. So if 1 gallon was used on one machine and 1 gallon used on another, it would have to be listed specific to that machine. So it should be reported in the way that it was requested on the data request forms. So if you have a form specific to that one machine, then that's how we would like to receive the usages. If it's in a permit where it has been combined or a device that's been combined, then it can be reported as seen on that form.
Okay, I think that wraps it up. I'm not seeing a follow-up from anybody in the chat. So if there are no further questions, I believe we can end the meeting. Okay, one more in the chat.
Let's see, where do we get the spreadsheet that we will be using this year? If you would like to use a spreadsheet instead of the forms that have been sent to you, please contact the engineer that's listed on your letter and they will provide that spreadsheet.
Okay, thanks everyone for attending. And as John, you mentioned, we have contact information there on the slide that's being displayed right now. You also have contact information on any letters you receive from us. And the replay of this will be available on our YouTube channel, which you can find directly through YouTube, or you can go to our website and you'll find a link to it there as well. So thanks everyone for attending and have a good day.
Thank you all.